another society has placed on us. Mm-hmm. It's an easier term.
Melissa has a traditional Inuit tattoo on her chin. Here she explains her connection to culture and her identity as an Inupiaq woman.
The last 5 years, in many of the travels that I've done, people ask, "What are you?" And one, because I've traveled now with the Tavlagoon, so because I have this facial marking on me, then I feel obligated to say I'm more than an Eskimo. And I share with people who ask, who sincerely want to know, one, why do I have this on my face? But two, that Eskimo is the wrong education your system has been teaching you and your children. So I usually start out as Inuit, belonging to the Inuit umbrella, and I am Inupiaq, and these are Inupiaq markings for me. I don't usually say Eskimo. It also made me think, when people ask, I kind of evaluate their tone, the way that they ask it. If I feel like they're asking in kind of a condescending way, I don't respond. I just kind of walk away. I've only had that instance occur a couple of times. And so it's just like, bye.
Yeah.
I've had instances too where when people ask, well, prior to me having it, people would assume that I was a type of Asian, and they would list all these Asians, and then they would, now they're like, what type of Eskimo are you? And I'm like, I'm not Eskimo. Eskimo is the wrong education your system has been teaching you and your children. And then some people get offended, but I'm just like, I'm telling you the truth, because if it were up to us, we wouldn't be teaching our children, as I have not taught my children to use the term Eskimo, because that's not correct. So why would I teach them something that's incorrect? But it's okay for me to teach a non-Inuit the incorrect word. The two, it just doesn't match. Though I have not taught my children to identify as being Eskimo, they have asked the question, well, this elder, maybe from the dance group, had said that they're Eskimo in a conversation at like a dance powwow or something. And so we get back home and they're like, Mom, why did the elders say that they're Eskimo even though we're Inupiaq? And so then I have to explain that they are part of a generation where that's the word that they were taught from the non-native people, and it's normal for them. It just made me think of the conversation that I had with my dad, who, I had asked him, I said, well, what is your concept of the word Eskimo? And he's like, it's me. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I am someone who has been taught how to subsist from the land, whether it be gathering, game hunting, any kind of preparations of any foods, or I get whatever resources from the sea. And he's like, I'm Eskimo, but I'm also Inupiaq. And I was like, you're so confusing me, Dad. But for his generation, Eskimo that's normal. But I think as we move forward in time with our future, it's taking what that generation has as normal, moving it away from our people, because it carried such it just carried a negative sense within, because you think about boarding school, the missionaries, the different diseases that came in. And that's one term that also came in with that generation, and maybe the generation prior to that too. There's a few people have said, we are the generation, we are the healing generation, where it's our time. We recognize and we understand that term Eskimo, but moving forward, we're going to educate not only ourselves, our children, but others who have been, using it in a not so healthy fashion.
I asked Melissa, are there negative connotations to the word Eskimo, or have you seen the use of the word in a derogatory manner?
It's almost like you're less than human because you're Eskimo. I've had people, I've not personally, but I've observed where someone said, and they're from the state of Alaska, who they're non-indigenous. Oh, you're just Eskimo because you don't know how to speak correctly, or you have a low-paying job, or you don't drive the fancy vehicle or live in a fancy house. And if they refer to someone who is, I guess, a high-class Eskimo, it's someone who is very educated in the Western system. They live in a 2 or 3 story house. They drive this, that, or the other fancy vehicle. They go on all these trips, and they dress like the Western influence. And they're a prominent Eskimo. And yeah, I've observed it, but in another sense, I'm like, that for those people that put that identification on us, they are the ones who are uneducated. They have missed out on something in school. You spend a lot of time in the school system. Like for me, it's the school system that failed that person. I feel sorry for them. And if I've seen someone who was treated in a negative fashion with the term Eskimo, and they weren't standing up for themselves, I would kindly just interrupt. And that's an opportunity for education. And they either take it one of two ways. One, as a positive learning educational experience that they learn something new and they can share with all their other non-native friends. Or they just continue their ignorant behavior and go about their life. I'm hoping that they take the positive approach and educate their friends.
How do you feel about our own relatives and our own family members and our own community members calling themselves Eskimo?
I think it's a word that it was placed on our people, and it depends on the generation. For the older generations, they didn't see it as a condescending word. It was a way for the non-native people to say, you're part of this ethnic group, even though it's really not according to U.S. Census, it's not an ethnic group. But, so it's okay. For some take really offense to it, though. And they try to correct elders where they say that's the wrong thing to do. You can't say we're Eskimo. We're not Eskimo. We're not eaters of raw meat. We're not savages. And when you correct an elder, who especially that's, if they're like 70 years old and older, that's all they've been all their life. You can't teach them. I mean, you could teach them, but they're probably not going to use anything else. I actually had this conversation at the state fair.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so we've been invited to dance, and somehow I got roped into doing an interview.
Oh.
And the conversation came up about the word Eskimo, and I was just like, oh, this is interesting. But it depends on the generation. I'm okay with using either Eskimo or Inuit or Inuit or Native person. But with my children, I don't teach them that they are Eskimo, because that is the word that was placed on our people. So the word that I place on my children is they are Inuit. They are not Eskimo. And I also instruct them, though, that if an elder says you're Eskimo, then you just agree with them. Just agree. Don't correct them. Because that's what they grew up. Because I've had that happen where an elder told one of my children, I don't know which one, but said, you're Eskimo. And they just kind of, my child gave them this look like, no, I'm not. I'm Inuit.
What's important about that part of the discussion is respect, right? Is everyone has their own journey and their own views and their own coming to know of their culture and who they are.
Probably in the next 2 generations, the word Eskimo won't exist in our vocabulary. That's what I'm hoping.
Me too. Yeah.
Well,
and it's weird too, because you never notice like how much it has been used, especially in our communities, right? So like Eskimo ice cream, Eskimo dance,
I speak Eskimo.
No
Eskimo community.
Yeah, it's like we have businesses, Eskimos Inc. in Barrow, we have Eskimos Inc. and WEO, World Eskimo Indian Olympics. It's crazy to me how much it's used.
And how normal it is.
Yeah. And maybe that's why so many people are resistant to change, to changing back, is because we've just gotten so comfortable with hearing it all the time. But is that a reason, to just keep perpetuating this term that we have no ties to? Term that was given to us that means something totally different than who we are.
Yeah.
Inuit people, the real people. That's what Inuit means, but who knows what Eskimo means,
I think that's where our I've heard the term that we are the healing generation. We are going to make the change where our elders weren't comfortable in making those changes for our people. So we are going to heal not only with our elders, but our future. I think the change it'll happen, because it's just not, society is forever changing. Mm-hmm. So, you go back, 50, 100 years ago, our people did their tribal markings. Then missionaries came in and said, it's evil, take it away, don't do it anymore, you can't blemish your skin. And then now we're in the generation now where it's acceptable, it's identity. Mm-hmm. We don't identify with the term Eskimo. It really, like you said, it has no connection to, what can we connect it to? Nothing.
It just doesn't seem worth it to hold on to some kind of term that was just assigned to us. And,
yeah.
And I know that I still use it, and I think a lot of people still use it. I still call Eskimo dancing, and
Eskimo ice cream,
Eskimo donuts,
Yeah.
But I think that the more that we get comfortable with recognizing where that is in our language that we use every day, and recognizing where we're using that word and how we can stop and to define things as they really are, that might be where the change comes in, is just a personal decision to consciously think every single time that you're saying that word, and to
it's like reprogramming ourselves.
Yeah.
To putting a different, oh no, that's not the correct one, I'm not using the correct one.
Yeah.
Backspace.
Yeah. And like I said, I think I'm not offended if other Native people use it, and I understand why, and I understand our own, struggles with it. But it does offend me, I think, when non-natives use it.
Mm-hmm. And it depends on their tone too when they use the word, because if they use it in, you could just feel if it's not appropriate, you could just feel the tension that they carry when they speak it, and it's yeah, you're not referring to me. Mm-hmm. You must be referring to something else, because that's not me. Because just our holistic approach is, being real people, we don't seek ill things. It's not something that we're out to seek. That's abnormal. That's where I see the opportunity for education. And just as education was imposed on us from the Western system, we also have plenty of opportunity to impose our forms of education on others, any other type of culture in the world. And like I said, we don't have an ill fashion to it. It's just because we prefer to live in harmony with each other and to show the love and respect for each other, have humor in the conversation, and not the ill feelings associated with the sense that people just say, oh, you're Eskimo. It's okay, what does that mean? We're adaptive people. Not saying that we invite negative things, but we make the best of the situation to serve each other.
If you had any advice for maybe someone who's struggling with their identity as an Inuit, what would you say, maybe one of your students or something?
I think that they should embrace who they are and where they have come from and recognize the strengths of